I can be the Buddha in Fredland. It's hard to be the Buddha in the real world. So in the 10% of the time that I'm in the real world, probably 9% of that 10%, I'm pretty good. Because I spend 90% of my time in Fredland. So that's one of the reasons that I make the work I make, is because like living there and making my work based on this universe of my mind is, which my real life is filtered through. It's not like I'm completely absent from the real world. All the issues from my real life are in all the text and the psychology and the narratives and the sort of setups with characters. I could tell you about almost every painting exactly what happened in my real life that started it, right? Like that was the germ of that image. Every single one of them. I just love the sort of stubby proportion body and giant head. Maybe it's, I don't know why, it's almost like, dwarf proportions that I find attractive. I think because it's not classical. There's something. The thing about classical proportions is that classical proportions don't speak to, at all, in my mind, in my opinion, to interior psychological states. They say nothing. They're just about perfection. And they're almost not even human, right? They're like so beautiful and perfect that they're just aesthetic. That's it. So they don't say anything to me about the human condition because they're not about the human condition. But if you got a big old head on a little stubby body, that says something psychologically. It may not be an accurate portrayal of the way people actually look, but it's telling you something. It's like, oh, this poor little stubby guy carrying this giant head around. Like, it's like that kind of sentiment, and I'm way more interested in that. And the reason I love this job is because I come in here and they do things that I would never have imagined. Every day this happens, or like every time, like multiple times throughout the year, these young artists make things that I'm like, oh, look at that. I've never seen that before. Like you think that's not possible. I've looked at a lot of art, but that's the one thing that makes art like continually exciting and interesting and renewable, is that every one of these people has their own sort of wrinkle on things, right? So like I'll see things I haven't seen, and like I'm maybe not sure. But that's probably a pretty good endorsement if I say like, wow, look at that. I've never seen that before, and I'm not so sure, but I don't know, but I kind of love it. That painting is based on these salt and pepper shakers, and I started collecting these figurative salt and pepper shakers. It's kind of a long story, but anyway, I've always been drawn to these sort of fruit and vegetable characters ever since I was a little kid. There used to be an Alka-Seltzer ad where everything in the fridge was alive. They were all like animated characters. It was just a static ad. I tore it out of a magazine once when I was about 5, and I carried it around with me for years until I wore it out. And something about that sort of everything coming to life, that kind of wonderful fantasy world that existed when you closed the fridge, like they all like started jumping around, and it was an ad for Alka-Seltzer. I thought it was amazing. So when I started seeing these things, I started buying them for like $1 or $2 a piece at flea markets. I go to flea markets to buy frames and whatnot. So when I started, they just entered into the work at some point. And it still popped back up. In fact, I almost put a little veggie head character in a piece yesterday. I held back, but they'll probably come back again. At one point I had probably 200 pairs of sets of salt and pepper shakers, and I've just kept the veggie ones and then a few oddballs. Like these guys, too. Like these guys have been in the work. These little naked dudes with flower hats, like, I have no idea what that's all about. That's like, what the hell is that? I don't know, but I think they're awesome, and they've been in the work. I used him as a character in a little dog painting. Just because he's sort of human looking, Like sticking his tongue out, he doesn't look like a real dog. Looks like a Fred Stonehouse character. So. And I think it's really interesting that in our dreams, even though it can be terrifying, in some ways we're just much more capable than we are in the real world. Everything's sort of out of our control. And even though our dreams behave in these insane ways, much more insane than the real world, we're not threatened by it. But it's still what's going on inside of our head. And for me, it's like, how much different is that from the real world? So I think it does color the way I think about the narratives that I create in my work.